All right, how you doing? You could tell your name for the people.
Gabrielle Jerome.
And who was your son name?
BTY Youngn.
And what kind of kid was he like growing up?
Spontaneous, very, very active. He was the neighborhood kid.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody in the neighborhood knew him. They used to call him Spot. Because when he was born with a little spot in the back of his head.
What neighborhood he grew up in?
Carrollton, Pittertown.
Okay. Did his life change when he started to get older?
It did.
How?
You mean as far as just high school, middle school, or just as the rapping career?
High school, middle school.
High school and middle school. Middle school, he was elementary, high school, middle school. He was a straight A student.
Mm-hmm.
He was, what I should say, he was very active in school. He stayed into trouble because he would be the first one to finish his work, and then he would bother all the other kids from getting their work done. So the teacher would call me like he's in trouble for disrupting the class because he finished his work and all the kids didn't get a chance to finish their work.
Mm-hmm.
So that played a big toll on him as far as getting in trouble. Not as far as fighting or none of that. It was none of that kind of trouble.
Just regular old school trouble.
Just regular old getting in trouble for the class activities. Disrupting the classroom, basically.
All right, so what was it? Right after Katrina, y'all moved to Dallas?
No, we didn't move to Dallas.
Oh, y'all moved to Dallas?
We moved to Houston.
You moved to Houston?
Yeah.
Gigi told me. I'm going to get on Gigi.
It's all right.
What happened to him when y'all moved to Houston?
We moved to Houston. I think he had started high school in Houston. And, of course, he was shot in Houston as well. He was shot 5 times.
How old he was when that happened?
16.
Oh, okay.
In front of me, I was right there.
Oh.
Yeah, so he was in like a little rap battle with some other guys. And I'm not sure, someone had called me and was like, come get D. We used to call him D. Come get D because something is about to go. Him and the kids are arguing and they wasn't sure why. So when I got there, it was a whole circle of kids.
Mm-hmm.
So I made him, my best friend was staying in those, it was some apartments, parking lakeside as a matter of fact. I made him go bring the bike, because he was on somebody's bike. So I made him go bring the bike up the step. Go park the bike, and then he had to go up the step to get his clothes. So when he came back down, I seen the young man, but I wasn't sure what was going on.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm like, he was coming back down the steps, and as he's coming back down the steps, as I'm standing down at the bottom of the step waiting for him because I'm fussing at the same time, like, let's get from back here. The little boy just walked up and started shooting, and me, I'm in a state of shock. I'm just screaming like, stop shooting my baby, stop shooting my baby.
Mm-hmm.
And then he broke out running, and I grabbed D, and I took him up the steps, and we called the ambulance, and then the ambulance came.
And unfortunately, good, he made it out there.
Thank God.
All right, so what age you started rapping?
About 16. About 15, 16.
You know where love for music came from?
It just honestly came out the blue.
Mm-hmm.
And he just started rapping.
How did it make you feel knowing he was about to make it off of music?
I was excited. I was more excited for him at the same time because I knew what he wanted out of that. His main thing was, to make sure his mom and his sister, and he had a baby, as a matter of fact, at the time, his dad, a 2-week-old son, to make sure we're straight. That was his main thing. He rapped about that in so many of his songs that he's gonna make sure his mom and them be okay.
So his son, how old he was when he had his son?
He was 29? Yeah, because 29.
Okay. So how did you started to work with juvenile misdemeanor?
I I'm not sure how that started. All I knew is because he came back before me. I was still in Houston. When he came back with his dad.
Mm-hmm.
So when he came back, he was staying with his dad. And then when I used to call him, like, where you at? And he used to be like, I'm with Mina. I'm like, well, who was like with Mina? But of course, I've been on Mina.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, what you doing with Mina? He was like, oh, I'm at the studio. I'm like, oh, okay. And then when he used to come back up there by me, he used to be playing the music. I'm just like, sound good.
Mm-hmm. So outside the courthouse, you gave DDP your son mixtape?
I did, but I was already in contact. You know, me and G used to talk when Youngn was in jail.
Mm-hmm.
So he used to, keep in contact with me and let me know, what was his next step and what he was going to do. So then G started coming to court with us. And that's when he called and asked me for the, when we go to court, the next court day, can I bring him one of the CDs? And of course, I gave it to him.
Oh, you know what you did with it?
I think he started putting out music.
Oh, that's good.
He started putting out music. He started putting it on the internet.
Mm-hmm.
So people could, listen to it.
All right, what did your son talk to you about his music career about?
Like as far as what he wanted to.
Well, what was he trying to achieve?
Oh, he wanted to make it big. He used to be like, I'm gonna be the next Tupac, because he loved Tupac.
Mm-hmm.
So he used to be, I'm gonna be the next Tupac, man. I should like, yeah, go for it. That's what you want to do, because if that's your dreams, you gotta go for your dreams.
Mm-hmm. All right, so all right, what year was he murdered?
2017.
Okay, what was the last time you talked to him?
Maybe an hour before that.
Dang. What are you talking about?
Well, he was telling me that, he had just got off the phone with the lawyers. They had finally came to an agreement for him to leave, because he was going to leave that Tuesday. He would have been left to do the paperwork, but they was going back and forth, making sure the paperwork was right so he can sign with cash money.
Okay.
So he was going to leave that Tuesday to go sign his paperwork. And then I was like, well, you about to come by my house, because he stayed with his girlfriend. And he was like, no. I'm like, well, you want me to meet you somewhere else? I'm about to bring you something to eat, because I was leaving from a party, I think. And he was like, no, I'm going to come over there and get it. But of course, he never did get a chance to make it over there.
So how did you find out about him being murdered?
One of his friends, KJ, had called me. Because like I said, I was on my way home leaving the party. And soon as I hit the door. I was opening up the door. And KJ called, and he was like, my Youngn shot. But of course, he so hysterical and crying, I couldn't really hear him. I'm like, what? And he was like, Youngn shot. I'm like, where y'all at? And then the phone hung up, but immediately me and my daughter ran out the door. Don't even know what direction we going in. We just hopped on the interstate, and I kept calling his girlfriend, and I'm like, you talked to D? And I didn't get her on the phone. I'm sorry, I didn't get her on the phone. So I was calling about her grandmother's house, and I'm like, you talked to D? And it was like, no, he not over there. I'm like, where's Kiva, which is his baby mom's name. And it was like, she not here. So of course they got in touch with her, and then she called me, and I'm like, you talked to D? Because KJ saying he got shot. And she was like, no, I haven't talked to him. So that's why I called my nephew Glenn, because he's always with him. So I'm like, you talked to D? And she was like, no. I'm like, well, they saying he got shot. So that's when, at that particular time, I'm calling him, and KJ calling me back. I'm like, what's going on? He was like, he landed on the ground, I think he dead. I'm like, where are you guys at? Where y'all at? And that's when he told me that was by the gas station. And I made it to the gas station. And I see my baby just laying lifeless body, just laying there on the ground.
You think his murder had to do something with jealousy?
Yeah, it played a part.
All right, what you want people to know most about your son?
What I want them to know is who they took away and what it did to not just me, his son. Like he loved kids, and that's all he wanted was to have a baby of his own. And to take that away from my grandbaby, that takes a lot. That hurts me a lot. To not to have him his daddy to be in his life to watch him grow up. And even as a lot of kids just even looked up to my son, they took away something that could have been a great access to the community and just people in general, because a lot of adults loved him. They loved his music. They loved the respect he had because he was very respectable. Mm-hmm. And I just wish he could have still been here just to achieve his goals.
All right, what you would tell other mothers that lost their kids to street violence? How to stay strong?
You gotta pray. Mm-hmm. You gotta pray, because without God, you will not survive. Because the devil will try to attack you as much as he can. He done already took your loved one, then he'll try to take your soul as well. Of, you know, what God will want you to do is to be strong as well. He wants you to just try to move on. Of course, it's hard to move on for every mother who's lost a child. But it's just hard. I just, like I said, it's no other strength in God. No other strength in God. That's all you got to do is just pray.
All right, his unreleased music you had, you know when it's going to come out?
I just released the song on his birthday.
Okay. The album coming out or something?
I haven't. It's gonna eventually come out. Like I release stuff gradually. You know, not. I don't want to put too much out at one time, but I put stuff out like every now and then. A lot of people still like his old music, so and I still have a lot of that. They always inboxing me about when you're gonna put this song out or that song out, but I'm gonna put some more out.